Hey everyone, my name is Chris Lambert, and on this channel we talk Kanye West. And today we are talking the brand new Kanye feature on 2 Chainz's Feel A Way, which just came out. It's been about 24 hours now on his album So Help Me God, which also has a Kanye connection for those of you who were around in 2015 waiting for the So Help Me God Kanye album to drop that never, well, it evolved, right, into waves, swish, swish waves, then the life of Pablo ultimately. But so help me God. And you have the song Feel Away, which has Brent Fayez on it singing the chorus, 2 Chainz, of course, and then Kanye coming in with an actual verse. And I wanted to give some first impressions and go through the verse and kind of deconstruct it just a little bit and get at some of the talking points that are in here. Because from what I see, there's kind of like 3 or 4 interesting talking points to kind of dive into. So starting off, we have here, which is just kind of the overall structure of the verse. As you all know, if you listen to our podcast, Watching the Throne, as I look down there, a lyrical analysis of Kanye West, we talk a lot about the structure of Kanye verses and songs and albums. And I thought this was pretty nice in just a simple way. You see him start the verse with, "Don't let him make you feel away." Like, you do not want to let people, and I'm guessing given what we see after this, the powers that be, the people that try to control you, let you get emotional. As in, once they make you emotional, they win. Something kind of like that, right? And you see that he closes it out with, "And I bet they feel away." So at the start, you have him kind of saying like, don't let them make you feel away, which is not only him telling that to us, but is also him reminding himself. Like, don't let other people make you feel. You make other people feel, which is where he ends up. And I bet they feel away, which is kind of getting into his actions here, right? He's causing other people to feel a certain way, which kind of calls back to Na Na Na, right? And what we heard Kanye saying on the Na 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 bridge, the original version, right? Where he talks about how he's putting himself in harm's way, but by doing that, he's causing the powers that be to put themselves in harm's way because they have to try and stop Kanye. And you see this like power struggle and power dynamic. And by the end of that bridge, he kind of claims the power, right? Because he says like the slaves outnumber everyone else. So even though the powers that be are going to try to stop us, we outnumber them. And that's kind of what he's getting at here with, I'm not going to let them make me feel a way. I'm going to make them feel the way. I'm going to be the one that has control here. I'm going to be the one empowered, and I'm going to be the one making moves, which is in line with Kanye's like entire career, right? He's always the one to try to make other people feel a certain way. He's always the one kind of making waves, causing things to change rather than letting the industry change around him. Even think about like the Good Fridays release, right? Way back in 2010. Like, streaming hadn't really become a big deal yet, right? But Kanye's releasing these songs for download week by week and just seeing a huge like surge of attention from that really made the release of My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy something special for people to get the hard copy, but to continue to download. And it was just ahead of the curve in how people were releasing music and making music accessible via the internet. What a great call. But just Kanye here to kind of have this structure of opposition, right? To start in this place and end in this place, to feel a little more defensive but end a little more offensive is a nice structure to the overall flow of this verse and gives it kind of a sense of a beginning and an ending. So that's kind of the frame that we have here. Moving on to the rest of the lines, we have, "Could have freed more if they only knew that they was slaves," which kind of gets to this idea of self-awareness, right? And calls back in some ways to the movie The Matrix, which you may remember a couple months back, Kanye tweeted out video of Lauryn Hill quoting The Matrix, right? And Kanye has quoted The Matrix several times, made references to Neo, and just this idea of being in a simulation and the way that people kind of get caught up not being aware of the fact that they are enslaved by something and in what ways people are slaves. So in the movie The Matrix, Neo starts off, Mr. Anderson, in the real world. And it turns out that this is the Matrix and he needs to be unplugged. But he's one of very few people in this simulation that becomes aware of the simulation. And he's able to get deactivated and then fight back and start freeing other people. But it's not until people are aware of what's going on that they're able to become free in that medium. And you think back to Kanye songs like All Falls Down and New Slaves, where he really puts into perspective the way in which consumerism drives us and causes us to make decisions in our lives based on things that we think we need without realizing that we're slaves to these consumer habits that the powers that be kind of force down on us, which he didn't really, there wasn't really an antagonist, right, in All Falls Down. In All Falls Down, it's more like, this is just how the world is, this is how culture is. But then by New Slaves, he's like, no, you have these power that try to control, people that try to control you and try to make you new slaves, and we're not going to abide by it. But they do that through consumerism. They do that by trying to do this, and this other thing. So Kanye's kind of been in this vein for a long time, but talking more specifically about it in 2020. Like Ego Death had some lines around this, Wash Us in the Blood had some lines around this, and Na 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 as well. So here we are with the, what is this, the fourth song in 2020, and Ego Death had been written in 2018. So Kanye's been on this vibe for a minute, and he follows up with that, right? Man, we gotta get away. And I could imagine some people trying to take this as purely historical, right? Because for America, a lot of the time when we hear slaves, we think back to like physical slavery in the 1600s, 1700s, and 1800s and the Civil War and everything, right? But when he says we got to get away, this clearly puts it into the 21st century, like a modern day current problem, not just historical. But I could imagine there's people that are going to try to take this historically, right? But here, man, we got to get away. Man, your boy done caught a wave. Yeah, that gets at what I was saying, that Kanye has been on this wave of trying to wake people up, trying to make people aware of the ways in which they might be part of a simulation or not thinking about what chains them, you know? You should hear the way I say, and then you have 2 Chainz coming in with the South Side here, which is the first time, oh no, we have Slave, Slave, Slaves with 2 Chainz coming in, and you kind of build to 2 Chainz having a bigger role in this verse, which is cool. I mean, he follows up the South Side ad-lib with talk, talk, talk to them people, just kind of hyping up Kanye, right, a little bit more. And 2 Chainz, Kanye comes back with, man, you don't even know the language, which I like. You have like, you should hear the way I say, like he's talking about, you need to hear how I speak or the way that I speak on this thing, but then you don't even know the language. Like, can you understand what it is I'm saying? And that kind of positions Kanye outside of, I guess, not even being understood, but even talking to the powers that be. Like, they might be the people that need to hear what he's saying, right? Not just the people he's trying to wake up, but the people that he's trying to fight against, and saying, you don't even know the language. Like, you can't understand where I'm coming from. You can't understand what I'm saying. And part of that is because Kanye is just a guy from Southside Chicago, right? Ultimately, like originally. I mean, now he's a Christian genius billionaire, right? But he still has that background of being from the South Side that many of the ultra wealthy have never experienced. And then you have 2 Chainz coming in, man, I ain't finna do no lame shits. This yacht, and that's a long way from a yacht, and that's a long way from a slave ship, which is such a great line in step with what Kanye's saying, right? Because he's talking about this idea of being caught up and being a slave and not understanding. And 2 Chainz is just like, look where I've come from. Like, as a black man in America, it's no longer the slave ship. I have a yacht. Like, we are making moves. And you even have something a little bit up in here, right? Which right here. Last one with Def Jam, but I'm still going off. And it ain't about my masters. I've been owning mine. So even 2 Chainz kind of talks about this sense of freedom that he has in his verse, where I don't think his verse necessarily, at least I don't think at this time, has much to do with Kanye's. But I feel like this line is very much in line with what Kanye's saying, and then goes up with this, like, 2 Chainz has had his own ownership of his work and his art in this industry and in this country, right? Which has allowed him to get ahead. And then you have Kanye coming back with how they control our mind, how they control us though, how they get us so emotional. And here you have the first 2 questions, right? Which are, in a sense, he's asking us, but a little bit rhetorical, setting up this like third line or third and fourth questions. How they control our mind, like Kanye's asking, how do they control us? How do they make us slaves? How do they keep us in this state of being, right? And the last question kind of points that out. They get us so emotional. But it's still left a little vague, right? He doesn't tell us what they get us emotional about. But I think going back through Kanye's discography and knowing how he feels about consumerism and keeping people placated. I mean, even recently when he's been talking about the unfair aspects of contracts and record contracts, they say that they like give you some money, right? They make you feel important. You get $1 million, you get 2 million, and you're feeling good. You're getting to live this like much more luxurious lifestyle than what a lot of rappers and artists had gotten to experience before. And through that, they own you, right? They tie you to this sense of consumerism that makes you feel elevated, but they don't let you have your full value and your full worth. And I think that gets back to what he's saying on New Slaves and All Falls Down, which also gets people very emotional about like, oh, I need a better car. I need to get the car that like this other person has, or I need to get this jacket that somebody else has. I need to get a Gucci bag. I don't have a Gucci bag. How don't I have a Gucci bag? Even like the Yeezys behind me. Do I really need like shoe racks full of Yeezys? But I get emotional about them, from the packaging, from like the look of them. You get emotional about these consumer driven things. But it probably goes beyond that as well. I'm sure there's other points you can make. The line is vague on purpose. I'm applying it more towards or to what I know about Kanye and his discography, but it's open-ended in that way. But I do think it's nice in the sense that the song's called Feel A Way, right? Which feeling immediately is emotional. So the fact that Kanye keeps the point grounded in the emotional aspect is really nice in terms of just staying with the concept of the track. And you notice this is essentially like in the middle ground between here and here. You have this, and right in the middle of the verse, you get how they get us so emotional. And this emotion tends to be the dividing ground. Are they making you emotional, or are you making them emotional? What side are you on? And this first half of it really stays in the defensive, as I talked about before, and the second half starts to go onto the offensive, with 2 Chainz saying, you think you Nat Turner what you want the folks to know, which is really nice because Nat Turner led the first and largest slave rebellion in America. And it didn't quite go as well as you would hope, right? It didn't end slavery. And in fact, in the aftermath of it, there was some backlash, right? A much more successful slave rebellion happened in Haiti, which actually led to Haiti being a country, right? Until that point, it was being kind of passed around between the British and the French and the Spanish and whoever was fighting the other for control. And at one point, the slaves were like, we outnumber everyone so much. And it was an 11-year rebellion that ultimately ended in people respecting Haiti as an independent nation, which is really awesome. But Kanye has called himself like Nat Turner as he's here in America, right? And 2 Chainz references that. So coming off of that, how they get us so emotional, which is kind of the midpoint, right? You bring up immediately Nat Turner, which leads to the sense of rebellion and going on the offensive rather than the defensive. And he says what you want the folks to know. And Kanye goes, when Larry Jackson called, they let Frank Ocean go, which I think for a lot of people is kind of like, wait, what? Who's Larry Jackson? To Kanye, he just kind of name drops business people at this point, but you can see here in this article from Hot New Hip Hop that Alex Zidell wrote just yesterday or last night. He starts going over what that refers to. And you can see here, if you're unfamiliar with the drama, in 2016, Frank Ocean released his visual album Endless, which was hosted by Apple Music. That album featured the terms of his contract fulfilled. Did it feature? Could you imagine an album that's just like listing what a contract is? That album fulfilled the terms of his contract with Universal, essentially making him a free agent after its release. Just a day afterward, Frank Ocean surprise released Blonde, which was packaged in a much more profitable manner. Again, it was temporarily an Apple Music exclusive. This time, it was released under his own label. So that's kind of everything Kanye's been talking about, right? Getting out of your bad deal into one that benefits you, preferably like it's your own label, you own everything, and you're getting an increased net of profits. So at that point, Frank Ocean owed Universal like one more album. I think he had a 3-album deal or a 2-album deal. And if he had just released Blonde with them, he would get what, like 5% of the profit from royalties, maybe. But when he releases it under his own label, out of his contract, he's getting 100%, 80%. Maybe he has more cost up front, but he's making more on it in the long run, which is why it's such a huge deal and why Endless ended up being this surprise release that allowed him to get out of his contract. It fulfilled the obligations, and then he goes to Blonde. And you see here, Jimmy Iovine said, "We had a deal. We were working with Frank Ocean, and he controlled where his music came out," which is kind of a nice deal to have, right? Why would it be in our interest to be part of a fast one, a slow one, or anyone? I think maybe they were saying, did they pull a fast one on Universal? And he's like, why would it be in our interest to be part of a fast one, a slow one, or anyone? We're getting the record no matter what. Whatever happened with him and Universal is really between him and Universal. It has nothing to do with us, nothing. Which sounds absolutely like the words of a guilty man who knew what he was doing. Jimmy Iovine absolutely knows recording industry tips and secrets and what goes on. So I think he was in the know about what he was helping Frank Ocean do. And it doesn't say much here about Larry Jackson, right? You have to go back to this older article from 2016 that says Apple Music execs Iovine and Jackson go on defense about Frank Ocean and Kanye West. And I had highlighted in this article, just because it was a little bit curious to me, you notice the language here that the quotes, and then they talk about Blonde, which was packaged in a much more profitable manner. And in this article, which released 3 years earlier than the other one, they say earlier this year, Ocean released a visual album Endless to fulfill a contract with the Universal label Def Jam, but then almost immediately released the more monetizable Blonde. Just feels a little bit like a plagiarism checker, using a very similar construction and talking point. But I guess that is kind of the talking point, right? Like Endless wasn't a marketable album. Endless was interesting, and it definitely has a cult following, but it wasn't something like Channel Orange that was going to get a lot of radio plays, get a lot of attention and acclaim. Blonde was. So I can see how both would land on that point, but and you can see here that this article does talk more about Larry Jackson. So Apple Music executives Iovine and Jackson adopted a defensive tone in parts of an interview published on Thursday, working to explain things like the fallout of a Frank Ocean deal and why Kanye West, The Life of Pablo, became a short-term title exclusive. And you can see here, on West, Jackson said the rapper is a good friend of his, someone he'll always work with. Jimmy and I went to the studio 2 times to hear the album, Pablo, and give feedback. Not for any reason other than we love him as an artist and we just wanted to help, he commented. Iovine remarked that West was part of Jay's thing and chose to make a deal with his friend, and I respect that. But then, it went from a title only, never be available anywhere else, to suddenly being part of Apple. I do wonder, and this is just like pure speculation on my part, right? But Kanye's friends with Frank Ocean. He worked with Frank on Watch the Throne. He has Frank on The Life of Pablo, right? Originally at the End of Wolves, now known as Frank's track. At the same time, Frank's trying to get out of his deal. And we know that Kanye really loved Apple, was trying to make deals with Apple, was trying to get Jay and Apple on the same page to work together. I do wonder almost if there was something like he asked Apple to help get Frank out of the contract, and he would, get out of Life of Pablo being a title exclusive and get it over to Apple. I don't know. Maybe. That's my conspiracy theory, right? Like Michael Jordan got kicked out of the NBA for a year or 2 years for gambling, and that's why he wouldn't play baseball. That's Bill Simmons' theory. This is my theory, that Kanye cut a deal with Apple to help Frank Ocean. And Frank Ocean, has to just forever be thankful to Kanye, maybe. I don't know what really he gets out of it aside from helping Frank, but it's not a good theory. Anyway, it's kind of cool that he references that and just shows that, like, I have helped an artist in the past, it seems like, get out of a negative deal. And that was him kind of being Nat Turner, or a Nat Turner moment that maybe started the current vibe that he's on. So then he says middle name Mandela, which, Nelson Mandela was a peacemaker and a deal maker, and also he ended apartheid. I should know more about that. But me and my mama sold dope together is what 2 Chainz comes in with, which is like a shocking admission given what was going on here. Very much not on tone when you first hear it, right? I Can't Hear You, Helen Keller, which might be one of the most controversial Kanye lines in a while, just because there's no real need to call out Helen Keller, especially like the fact that she was like blind and deaf, which was really, man, she got like the worst. Was she also mute? She might have been, but just the fact that like he's kind of punchlining with Helen Keller, or kind of associating like not being able to hear with Helen Keller, feels a little bit more juvenile than where Kanye has been at, or even where this verse has been at, right? And then you have 2 Chainz coming back with Since 15 I've Been a Felon, which also feels like off topic a little bit, though it follows up with like me and my mama sold dope together, right? Like you can see the connection. We were selling dope. I became a felon at only 15. And then he gets to the point. A felon can vote, spread the message, exhale a cappella. So a lot of people that have been in the system feel like they can't vote. And there's some states where you absolutely can't, but you still can in a lot of them, right? And I think Florida had just restored voting rights to felons. So you can see him kind of talking about, spread the message, like you can vote, and there's power in that, which gets back to this idea of rebellion and changing things and not being slaves. Like you need to take ownership of your governments. And one of the best ways we can do that at this point, any individual, is to vote, and vote not just every 4 years, but every year in local elections, every 2 years for Congress and Senate, and then every 4 years for the presidency, And then Kanye comes back with I Still Throw My Diamond Up, which kind of comes out of nowhere as well, at least from how I'm understanding right now. But you talk about, I guess, maybe divides and power and power splits. And Kanye has said that, The Rock is still alive every time he rhymes. This dates back to Diamonds from Sierra Leone, like 2005 Kanye. But the interesting thing about this in the context of this song is that it's not just Kanye talking about conflict diamonds like he does in the remix, right? It was actually about the fact that Rockefeller was going through like a schism at this point. It was falling apart. There was a power struggle. And you can see the next lines here. I still throw my diamond up. And even 2 Chainz is like, you still repping Rockefeller? Oh, man. And Kanye says, me and Dame in the studio, diamond up. Me and Biggs in the studio, time is up. What up, Dame? What up, Biggs? And Dame and Biggs were the other 2 to Jay-Z that made up Rockefeller, right? And you can see here that by the time in 2004, when Kanye was coming out with College Dropout, there was already this schism that was starting to occur, and the infamous split between Dash, Carter, and Burke occurred when it was revealed that the trio had sold their 50% interest in Rockefeller to the Island Def Jam Music Group, making the label full owners. As president, Carter retained control of the Rock and his masters, ousting his two former partners. He later explained that he had offered to turn down the position and ownership for the masters to Reasonable Doubt alone, which is kind of wild. And then as Dash and Burke set up their own fledgling record label, originally called Rock for Life and later rechristened to Dame Dash Music Group, each artist was offered their choice of labels. Yeah, it was like a divorce. The Diplomats were the first to make the move to Dame Dash Music Group and became a public campaign against Jay-Z, dissing him in songs and interviews backed heavily by Dame. Cameron was especially vocal, claiming Jay-Z blocked him from an executive position Dash had offered him at Rockefeller. Beanie Sigel, then doing a year's incarceration on an attempted murder charge, put out his album The Becoming on Dame Dash and Rockefeller. This was accompanied by accusations from Dash that all of the members of State Property, only Oshino, had gone to visit Sigel in prison. Though Beanie had initially chosen Dame Dash Music Group, the rest of the group refused, preferring to remain on Rockefeller Records. In response, Beanie effectively put the group on hold, claiming disappointment in his group mates. MOP and Graff also left Rockefeller for Dame Dash, though both acts parted ways with Dash soon thereafter. Due to the 2004 death of Old Dirty Bastard, Dash also brought with him Masters of the Rappers Project and promises to release the album, A Son Unique, though this never occurred. Memphis Bleek and Kanye West released 534 and Late Registration, respectively, in 2005, along with Young Gun's sophomore effort and Tierra Mari's debut, though only Kanye West projects saw significant reviews or sales. It was stated by Memphis Bleek that Corey Guns had signed, but nothing materialized. By the end of the year, Dash had split his label from Def Jam and Jay-Z's role overseeing his project. After asking for more money and a bigger role in the company, Dame Dash left Def Jam and was subsequently dissolved. Yeah. So that was how that was going. And you may remember on Diamonds from Sierra Leone at the end here, after Kanye, so this song starts with Kanye kind of just being about himself, right? And he's talking about where he came from in the first verse and just kind of oh, I'm famous now. And at the start of the second verse, he's very selfish in his fame, talking about awards he should have won and what he's owed and throwing a tantrum like he's 3 years old before his dad's finally like, yo, you need Jesus, and takes Kanye to church, and he gets baptized essentially in that moment. The water wash over my Caesar, which is a haircut, but also crown, right? And that kind of foreshadows Kanye assuming a leadership position, not only in the industry, but in the idea of Rockefeller. So the preacher said, we need leaders, right? And this sends a chill through Kanye's body, and he gets still like a paraplegic. And this is when he starts going into this drama with Rockefeller, and he matures and suddenly becomes a leader, right? Rather than this selfish, child throwing a tantrum at the start of the song. And you could see him, the rocks stand tall and you would never believe it. Take your diamonds, throw them up like you bulimic. Yeah, the beat cold, but the flow is anemic, and the debris settles and the dust gets swept off. Big K pick up where Young Hove left off. That's it. After the debris settles, after this fight is over, after everything's kind of, people have picked a side and we're able to move on, Kanye's going to pick up where Jay-Z left off. I'm going to put this label on my back and I'm going to carry forward. Right when magazines wrote Kanye West off, I dropped my new shit. It sounded like a best of. A&R is looking like, psh, we messed up. Grammy night, damn right, we got dressed up, bottle after bottle till we get messed up. In the studio with Really Doe, he next up. So notice the difference. This verse starts with him freaking out that he didn't get awards. And then we're back to the Grammys and he doesn't even care. It just gets 2 bars and he moves on to the fact that he's helping Really Doe be next up. It's no longer about the awards Kanye's getting. It's about him helping somebody else get on. People asking if I'm going to give my chain back, which would be the Rockefeller chain. That'll be the same day I give the game back, right? Man, what a bar. You know the next question, dog. Yo, where Dame at? Because of the schism that have formed, and Jay-Z's no longer with Dame, Big's no longer with Jay-Z, Big's off with Dame. It's just yo, where Dame at? Everything cool? Not cool? People wanted to know. The this track, the Indian Dance, to bring our rain back. So Kanye's trying to use this track as kind of a way to mend the fences at Rockefeller and try to bring Dame and Jay together. And I'm assuming Biggs too. He kind of gets left out. But the next line is, "What's up with you and Jay, man? Are y'all okay, man?" So you see these people like kind of poking around. Like, is everything okay with Dame? Is everything okay with Jay? Like, what's going on? What's happening with Rockefeller? And maybe they're trying to cause problems a little bit too. Like, yo, are you okay with Jay? I heard he was saying some stuff. And Kanye just ignores that, right? They pray for the death of our dynasty, like, amen. Like, everyone else is hoping we fall apart because it gives them a vacuum to fill. They might get more power, they can rise up, they don't want to see us continue to be up top. But Kanye says, right here stands a man with the power to make a diamond with his bare hands, which is such a great line. It's a great line. And then in the remix, you might be thinking like, oh, does it go over the same thing? Yeah, kind of. It's just a different way. Like the conflict diamonds that he talks about, it's not just him being like, oh, diamonds like are blood diamonds and they're bad. He even says in this track that everything he says is about Rockefeller, right? Where is it? Diamonds we gonna own. When I speak of diamonds in this song, I ain't talking about the ones that be glowing. I'm talking about Rockefeller, my home, which might get overlooked a lot. I mean, you can see that Genius didn't even bother annotating it. But that's what he's saying. Like these diamonds that he's talking about that are so serious, it's not just that. He's worried about Rockefeller and the conflict within Rockefeller and what that means for him. And not just that, but how he's acting. As we saw in that previous OG version of Diamonds from Sierra Leone, right? It starts with him throwing a tantrum and being selfish, and that morphs in this verse to him just worrying about looking fly and having diamonds and showing off that he's part of Rockefeller, right? Rather than actually being part and being a leader within Rockefeller that's helping the group and helping with whatever schisms going on. And that's kind of the conflict that he's having, is that you're not just part of this group and getting to benefit from it. You're part of this group and there's a responsibility there to be a leader and what it means to be part of Rockefeller. And he still has the Dame line coming in, right? You know the next question, dog, where Dame at? This track, the Indian Dance that bring our rain back, and then what's up with you and Jay, man? You're all okay, man. And Jay-Z comes in and is the leader that Kanye wants to be, right? And he continues to show off, not just like Jay-Z style, like I'm great, I'm a businessman, not a businessman, right? Let me handle my business, damn. But he's also putting on the other artists on the label and showing that he's going to make sure that the Rockefeller is still going strong. Like Kanye's giving him a platform for this, which makes We Major kind of in the same vein, right? Because Nas's verse on We Major is also talking about the fact that there needs to be a change to the music industry and that he has power to make a change, like right here. So y'all cop the LPs and y'all fiends got dealt. I'm Jesse Jackson on the balcony when King got killed. I survived the livest guys around. Lasted longer than more than half you clowns. Look, I used to cook before I had the game took. Either way, my change came like Sam Cooke. Oh, wait, no, here. Sorry. Now I'm a free agent and I'm thinking it's time to build my very own Motown, because rappers be deprived of executive 9-to-5s. So he's looking at the fact that he did his thing as a regular artist, right? And he got on, he got money, but now it's time to build and be a leader within their art form, their field, and help other people achieve, which is exactly what Jay's doing in the previous song. And it just so happens that on Diamonds from Sierra Leone, Kanye's trying to mend things between Dame and Jay. And then we know that there was a big feud between Jay and Nas just a few years before this. And Kanye kind of puts them in conversation too and shows an alignment between both of their thinkings, which Kanye just kind of trying to mend fences with the industry in general. So that's a long aside, right? Wow, we're 34 minutes. I didn't think that this would take that long. But all of that comes back to this. The fact that Kanye's still throwing the diamonds up. He's still trying to be a leader. And I think that's what he's summoning here, is not just the fact that, like, remember Diamonds from Sierra Leone and, like, how thoughtful I was? It's On Diamonds from Sierra Leone, I was trying to say that I'm a leader in this industry and trying to show like my mentors are being leaders in this industry. And I'm doing the same thing now. Like I'm still repping Rockefeller. Like I still throw my diamond up. I still have that power. And Dame is still making moves. Big is still making moves. And we're going to change things. Like we're not just in the studio making music, we're in the studio leading. Like that's amazing. Like I love that so much. And then Woo, I Bet They Feel a Way, which, you know, as he's in the studio with Dame and Biggs and still like Rockefeller is still this living, breathing thing changing the industry at the top of the industry, other people probably feel a way, which you could reduce the same way that he has on here. Like people asking me, is it going to give the game back? Like, you know, you have these people that are praying for their downfall, and I Bet They Feel a Way might be in reference to those same people. But as you said up front, I think the people change now. Like it's no longer like other MCs and rappers that want to be in that position. It's like the other powers that be, because Dame is still like pretty powerful, like not just in the industry, but just as like a persona, right? Making moves in this day and age. And it's like Kanye's like, yo, we're making moves, and the powers that be are feeling a way about the fact that we have this power. So I like that. I do think that there's a little conspiracy theory, which I guess I've had a number of them in this video, conspiracy theory that because he doesn't mention Jay, that there's a little bit of I bet they feel a way. Like, I wonder how Jay's feeling about the fact that I don't mention him here, you know? Now I'm with Dame and Biggs. But I don't think Kanye would be that petty about it in this song. It seems like even though he and Jay are in a cold war, that Kanye and Jay continue to be both like cordial to each other when they mention each other in interviews, and whenever it gets brought up, they just say like, you know, that's my brother, yada, yada, yada. So probably not calling out Jay-Z there, but I think you could make an argument that it's vague enough that maybe he is. And then we get 13,000 acres, I don't know where to stay, which is my favorite line on the song. Just because Kanye has this ranch, right? He has 2 ranches in Wyoming, which is where the 13,000 acres comes from. And he's staying in Calabasas, Wyoming, Atlanta. He could stay at like either place in Wyoming. And he's not even only staying in his house in Calabasas. Sometimes it seems like he's staying at Yeezy Christian Academy. Dude's all over the place, right? And he has the money that he can just go to Paris, he can go to Japan, he can go like stay in a fancy place in Chicago or Miami, New York, wherever he wants to go. So the fact that he's just traveling around everywhere and feels a little I don't know, wayward. But I like that the 2 Chainz ad lib here is just Southside. It's just like, I don't know where to stay, and 2 Chainz is just like, Chicago, like stay in Chicago, go back to Chicago. Which a lot of people, when Kanye said that he was going back to Chicago and never leaving, everybody was like, yes, this feels right. And then did it follow up with that? I'm sensing a pattern. But that's it. I didn't expect this video to go so long. If you've watched this whole time, thank you very much. And I guess I usually have the spiel of if you want to support the channel, but if you watch this long, you are supporting the channel. So thank you. And I'll have another video, I guess tomorrow, on Na Na Na. But until next time, stay wavy and keep it loopy. Cheers.